Hey there, it is Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
Love talking to this guy. Todd Nettleton is a part of Voice of the Martyrs. You probably hear that show on 590 WDWD Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. He's got a book right behind him. We're going to talk about that and more. First of all, Todd, how are you?
I am doing well. A little jet lagged, but otherwise doing well.
Where were you?
I just got back from a sort of work and play trip. We went to Romania to film some video scripts relating to the lives of our founders, Richard and Sabina Wurmbrand. And then my wife and I spent a week in Greece on our way home. So that part was the fun part.
Yeah. Okay. How beautiful was that?
Yeah.
It was spectacular, and so much biblical history there to stand in the streets that Paul stood in. Is just pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah, wow.
That would be surreal, wouldn't it? I mean, I've only seen it on video, on television, or on video on the internet. But to be there and to think what happened there, I bet it was fascinating. Were there a lot of people there? I know that's a big tourist area. Were there a lot of people there?
You know, one of the islands we went to, the guy who drove us from the airport said there was only about 20% of the normal amount of tourists.
Wow.
But it seemed like a lot of people to us. So we were actually kind of glad we weren't there when it was at 100%, because we might not have found a place to eat.
Wow. Yeah, I bet you've had some good food too, didn't you?
We did have some good food, yes.
Wow.
I was going to ask him something deep and spiritual. What kind of food did he eat? What was your favorite? What'd you walk away with as far as eating?
I love kebabs. I love Middle Eastern and kind of Mediterranean food. So that was something that I really enjoyed. We also ate a lot of Greek salad, which is different in Greece than it is here. It's more just kind of tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and olive oil. And so it's a little different, but yes, we definitely ate well.
That is awesome. Yeah. Well, we love your show, and we thank you for spending time with us. We want to talk about the book that's right behind you. As I mentioned before we went live, I was just listening to I think it's the latest episode of Voice of the Martyrs, and it's with John Short. It's fascinating. The man was preaching the gospel in North Korea, was arrested, and didn't think that he would be released, and then he's released. It's quite a story. I didn't get to finish it. That's quite an experience to be able to sit down and talk with. I mean, hey, this is the 21st century in the United States. You know, kind of persecution is like not even in our thinking, but you're talking to folks up front and personal right there in their face. And that's a little surreal to listen to. It's like, wow, this is like New Testament. This is the book of Acts. Right here in the 21st century. Talk a little bit about that.
It is one of the great blessings, and really one of the things that makes Voice of the Martyrs Radio unique is you get to hear firsthand from somebody who's had that experience. I mean, how many of us have been detained in North Korea because of our gospel work? Not that many people. And then to be able to hear that story firsthand and hear directly from someone like John Short. We've had people whose family members have been martyred for their faith. We've had people who have been in prison because of their faith. And just, you know, my goal as the host is just to get out of the way and let them tell their stories, because I think as Christians, we hear those stories, the natural response for every one of us is, okay, what would I do in that situation? How would I respond to that challenge? And that's a great question, because I think a lot of us have to say, Lord, I know what the right answer is. I know what I want to say I would do, but I'm not sure I would do that. Help me to have that faith. And that drives us to prayer. It drives us into the scriptures to strengthen our faith and hopefully to be able to say boldly, I know I would stand. I've already made the decision that any price is worth it to follow Christ.
You know, you say that, and as I was listening, there was a part in the interview, and he talked about when he's before the North Korean government, and they were saying, oh, you broke a law. And he said, I did break a law, but it was not for political. It wasn't a political thing. It was for sharing the message of Jesus. And they made him sign a document, and he did. And he got a little flack later on from folks on the internet for him doing that, saying that, you know, basically, well, you gave in. But, when you're at that point, which he did not give in, but, when you're standing in front of, it's easy for me to armchair quarterback, right?
Yeah.
But I'm standing in North Korea within my mind, no hope of ever going home, seeing my wife, seeing my family, but doing it because I love Jesus and I know that's what I'm called to do. You got to have some guts and you've got to have some faith. And the guy had been fasting and he just prayed that he'd have strength to stand up. I'm like, how convicting is that? Right?
Yeah. John is a hero. I don't use the word hero very often, but he's a hero to be willing to go. And like you say, he signed the confession. He did get some flack, but part of the confession was, I admit that I want as many North Koreans to know Jesus as possible. Yes, I am guilty of that. I want North Koreans to know Christ. So wow. Yeah, he said that in the conversation. Yeah, I was guilty of that. I did want that to happen. And so he didn't really have a lot of hesitation of saying, yeah, no, that's the honest truth. That's really what happened. But it is an amazing story. The other thing that comes through in his story, this is someone who has spent years working in China, working with persecuted Christians there. And he talks about how their stories and their experiences influenced him and prepared him to go through that time of persecution. Like he had met and fellowshiped with Chinese believers who had been 20 years in prison. So him being a few weeks, he just felt like, hey, I'm not even scratching the surface of what these brothers have been through. So, and that's, again, part of why we have Voice of the Martyrs Radio, is to share those stories so that we as American Christians can sort of draw on that wisdom and draw on that experience to strengthen our own faith.
Wow.
What fascinating stories of faith. Todd Nettleton, the host of Voice of the Martyrs Radio, and he's got a new book out. I don't know if it's how new it is, but Todd, when does it come out? When Faith is Forbidden, 40 Days on the Front Lines with Persecuted Christians.
The book came out from Moody Publishing in March, so it is just a few months old, and these are 40 of the most powerful stories that I have heard in my face-to-face conversations with persecuted Christians. So when people ask me, well, tell me one of the great stories, these are them. These are those 40 stories, and the book is written as kind of a travel log, kind of an invitation to you as the reader. Come with me. Let's go on a journey together. Let's spend 40 days hearing the stories of our persecuted brothers and sisters, because when we do that, your faith on day 41 is going to look a little different. After encountering these brothers and sisters, after hearing their stories, your faith is going to be impacted by that. So that's sort of my pitch on the book, and it's actually available from Voice of the Martyrs. If you make a donation to VOM, they'll send you a copy for free as a thank you for the donation. So it's easy to get a copy, and I would just encourage people to do that. And like I say, spend 40 days meeting persecuted Christians.
Todd, you sitting down with these folks now. This is just 40. You've sat down with so many folks and heard their story. What's a common trait you think of the 40? I'm sure there's more than one, but one that sticks out to you, maybe ministers to you.
Let me share two. One is a sense of joy. We tend to picture a persecuted Christian as someone who's pretty depressed, like, hey, this guy's just been in jail and boy, he's probably really discouraged. And that's actually the opposite of reality. They are joyful. They are excited about what God is doing. They're excited to be a part of his kingdom. They see persecution as a way of God complimenting them. Like, God had so much confidence in me that he allowed me to be persecuted. Isn't that amazing? So number one, I would say joy. Number two, and this is, I think, a lesson for us, they had counted the cost ahead of time. They knew there could be persecution, and they made the decision that, yes, even though I could be persecuted, I am going to follow Christ. So when that persecution came, it wasn't like it sort of knocked them off course, or they thought, Lord, what happened? How could you let this happen? They knew it could happen. They made the decision to follow anyway. And again, I think that's a challenge. I think that's a lesson for us as American believers, to make that decision ahead of time and count the cost.
What a book that will really help in your spiritual journey. You can find out more at vomradio.net. Just click on the link there and it'll take you to a page where, like Todd mentioned, there's a special offer with a gift of $30 or more. You get 2 copies of the book. one for you and one to share. So that's really a great deal. Go give $30 and get yourself a couple of books, and this book will just energize your faith.
Yeah, you can go to vomradio.net to do that and find out more. Todd, we got to take a break in just a minute or two, but what's coming up for you? What are you excited about for the rest of 2021 and 2022?
One of the things we are really excited about at Voice of the Martyrs is a film coming out this fall called Sabina, Tortured for Christ, the Nazi Years. It tells the story of Voice of the Martyrs founders, Richard and Sabina Wurmbrand. They both spent time in prison in communist Romania. And so this film is going to come out right after the International Day of Prayer for Persecuted Christians in November. It's going to be in theaters nationwide. It's going to be a really great event. And that's part of the reason I was in Romania just a couple weeks ago. We're filming some things in conjunction with the film, but we're very excited about that. The other thing, unfortunately, is we're going to have more work to do as Voice of the Martyrs. There's a crackdown going on against the church in China right now. There are dozens of Chinese Christians in prison. There are churches being closed left and right around the country. There are attacks almost every single week in northern Nigeria against the church. So, being able to tell those stories is my part of the ministry, but other parts of the ministry are actually on the ground, helping, assisting, encouraging those brothers and sisters as they go through those times of persecution. So I'm excited to be a part of what VOM is doing around the world.
Todd, we appreciate all of you there, you continuing to do what you do it so well, and just your bravery is just unbelievable. And for those folks you talk to, my gracious, what ministry to us you guys have done and continue to do. Hey, check out that book. Todd just talked about it, and I love that deal. vomradio.net. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.